Hello, this is the Sharing Wheel podcast. Today we have John Zobar, co-founder of the Garden School here in Beverly on Foster Street. Morning, John.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. And the Garden School is such an amazing, amazing place. And I know you've gone from like the idea phase to the action phase, like very much so. Could you give like a brief kind of sort of a history of the Garden School and how the origins of it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea goes back much further than the action part of it. I think, at least for me, I was on track when I was in college to study art. I was studying art at Gordon College, and I was starting to look into, maybe grad school. But I think my senior year, a group showed a video called Food Inc., and it was pretty shocking, to learn about the food system. And it just kind of occurred to me that we are in a crisis. And, at that age, I felt the conviction to do something about it rather than to, just pursue making paintings.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just kind of where I was at on the inside. And so instead of going into art after school, I took jobs in landscaping and agriculture. And kind of all along I had the idea of trying to create an alternative to the way things were. And my brother, who is 2 years older than me, also went to Gordon. And we've always been really tuned into each other, and we were on the same page about this whole situation. And Ben. And so he also was pursuing agriculture in different ways. He was working for the food project here in Beverly.
Yes, at the Long Hill.
The Golden Age at Long Hill.
Oh, it was nice.
To
be able to use that field. I was so disappointed when they put the driveway right through the field. But anyways, that's another. But
now we have the garden school. So.
No, I agree.
But yeah,
I agree.
So we had, my brother had been doing the food project. I did some mid-scale mechanized agriculture up in southern Maine on a bean farm. Actually, I was working for Charlie Bear, who was farming in Beverly at Moraine for many decades, and I got a job for him his last harvest in Beverly before he moved up to southern Maine.
Okay.
So I moved up with him in the farm. So I was kind of out of the Beverly scene for a good 5 years while I was up there.
Yeah.
And I did some traveling. And that was the era that my brother was at Long Hill with the food project, and all that wonderful energy was happening, and so many people were coming by and getting into agriculture and local food. And
it was great. So when did the property become available? It was like soon, right around that time.
Exactly. Yeah. We were kind of my brother was sort of in a holding pattern. Things were good. I had just come back from my travels, and this was in 2015 when my brother was actually volunteering at the youth group at First Baptist Church right here. And that's how he got to know Joe Boscia, the then owner of Camp Mitchman.
Okay, all right, yeah.
And so my brother had been telling me, Joe's thinking about selling this property. We had talked about trying to start a school. Maybe this is, our opportunity.
Yeah.
And I was just like, there's no way we can get
not on your radar.
Really. An 8-acre,
in Beverly. Yeah.
It's just,
it's pretty unheard of, right?
But I received I guess I would say an inner leading
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that we should take steps towards trying to do this.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I followed it. And at the time, I think I was like 31 or 32. And so we just started taking the steps, having
Right.
the meetings, having the
Yeah.
conversations,
Yeah. Yeah.
putting pen to paper. And we kind of catered our vision for the garden school to that particular property.
Yeah.
And the first idea was to rip out the old tennis courts and turn it into our garden.
Yes. Yeah. And so you were restoring the land too. You're bringing it back, sort of freeing it up from the tennis court. You had to rip up the tar and put new dirt down.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I had worked in landscaping a little too, so I was
Okay,
familiar
yeah.
with heavy equipment and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that was actually the easy part of the job because we
Yeah.
could use machines to do all the
Right.
work.
Right.
But
And did the leaf dump next door help you a little bit, or was it someone else who was bringing in?
Yep.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
well, yeah, we got a compost donation from Peter Britton from Brick End's Farm early on, but then the
Okay.
bulk of the material, came
Yeah.
from the leaf dump.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
And then,
Gary.
Was it Mayer, the landscaping firm that cut some of the trees down?
That's
for
right.
you?
Yeah. Then, so there's a lot goes into just having a garden. I mean,
No,
a lot of
yeah.
a lot of backyard gardeners or would-be backyard gardeners in places like Beverly realize that there's a lot of trees, and that
Yeah.
kind of makes it hard to successfully grow anything.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
it was
Yeah.
the same case for us. I mean, the whole
Yeah.
property was thickly forested, and
Right.
and Dan brought in his heavy duty equipment and just took out all the trees that we needed gone to get that sunlight
Yeah, yeah.
for the garden.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you look at it now, and it's hard to imagine that it was a tennis court, full bloom.
right,
It's,
yeah,
so it's a pretty empowering experience to do that, to to restore something. You look at, I think what you guys had termed it was to unpaved paradise, and that's such a cool concept. There's so much there because you created this growing area, and that feeds your farm stand. And also, you have volunteers who will get their hands in the soil, and that becomes empowering for them to grow food and to be outdoors in the sunlight and grow something. To get their hands in the soil, and then also like the product, healthy food. So there's so many. Right, you're benefiting the earth by getting rid of the tennis court, and then all these good things that happen. All of that.
right, yeah. There's no negative side effects.
No downside to growing.
Yeah,
right?
there's no downside. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very cool. And and then the restoration. I mean, that for the whole place, right, needs restoration. And one of the first things you guys tackled was the great room there at the main building that's above the growing area. And I think I heard you talk about that there was a leak in the roof, and it was essentially like a waterfall, rained hard, and it would just pour right into the building.
Yeah, like I said, my brother and I had both been in, the land arts, agriculture, and landscaping. Neither of us were carpenters.
Yeah.
And we didn't quite comprehend at the time, what would be required to have a 100-year-old, 11,000 square foot, historic building. And right when we got it, it was I can see why the Bosches were ready to sell. It was like, things were kind of falling down.
Sure. Yeah.
And it just accelerated really quickly. After a year or two we were there, just the deterioration of the building.
Once things start leaking, right?
Yeah,
that just ruins.
Yeah, and like you said, I had one moment. I think this was like the second year we were there. I was living in the building, keeping an eye on things and just surviving. And yeah, during a terrible storm, I went out and looked, and it was just, yeah, it was like a waterfall coming inside the building. And I was like,
what do I do?
what do I do?
Yeah. And
I have no idea how
yeah,
this is gonna.
Yeah. So you pulled it together, and you got some funding for a new roof, and you put a skylight. I think there's a skylight in the middle, right, where you look up.
Right. Yeah. So the great room. Well, the building was originally built in 1917. The architect James McLaughlin, and then I'm not exactly sure. I'm guessing somewhere between the 30s to the 40s or 50s, they did a big addition, and they expanded the great room. They actually put in steel beams to make it a greater room, much bigger room.
Okay. Yeah.
But the effect of that is that it made a large room with like a pretty low ceiling, so it kind of felt like a cave.
Yeah.
And since we were, going with the garden theme, we thought, well, though it's a historical building, since part of the history of the building is later iterations of making modifications to it, we'll have our architectural contribution of adding a large skylight in the middle of the building, or in the middle of the room, which really transformed the atmosphere of it.
Yeah. That's a great. I've seen it completed, and all the floors were redone. You redid the walls, the ceiling, the roof, the wiring, all of that, and the fireplace in there is magnificent, old school, like a hunting lodge type fireplace.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you don't see people building buildings like this anymore.
Yeah. And you're renting in part to a school. The kids come in and homeschool program are coming in. Do they come in every day, or do they?
Right now, 3 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah. It was kind of funny because we had been fighting to get this building, this great room restored, and a couple of the other downstairs rooms to get the building usable. And after it took 5 years to raise the money, and we got it partially done, and then we'd get some energy, and then by the time we finally finished, we were like, oh man, now we have to start a school to use this building.
It doesn't end there, right?
And it was actually we had a community conversation where our balloon loan owner finance arrangement with the Bosches was coming to an end.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out, how to refinance. And a woman named Erica Gregory walked through the door that day for that meeting, and she homeschools her kids, and she is part of a homeschool community that has exploded since COVID.
Yeah.
We can all guess why so many people would want to homeschool during that time. And she went to Gordon too, so I was more friends with her husband, but the homeschool community had been kind of blowing up, and they had just been meeting at people's houses, and they were bursting at the seams trying to find a
suitable space.
Yeah. And here we had this space, and it was like a hand and a glove.
Nice.
And so, they started, I guess this was a year and a half ago, in 23. And it's just been so awesome to see the property filled with children running around, screaming, gardening, learning. There's something like, this is what this property is meant for.
Yeah. It's your vision is coming into focus. And then, so you guys recently did a little pond out front there, and did I hear mention, maybe was that a flooding area where you decided to do a pond? Or,
yeah. So at what used to be the tennis courts, where the slope kind of hits the flat part of the tennis courts every spring, it would flood.
Yeah.
And I think it's just from rain coming down on the the rest of the property, which is a hill, it goes down, hits the ledge, comes down the hill, and then comes out of the ground right there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was flooding the garden after we put the gardens in. Sometimes pretty bad. So we had kind of dug a pit there, like just off the cuff,
Yeah.
several years ago, and we finally managed to. We got a grant to put in a pond that not only drains the excess water beyond the garden, but it holds water too and has a little waterfall.
Nice.
And I was able to put some of my landscaping skills to
There
work,
you
some
go.
of the
Yeah, yeah.
stonework.
Great.
And the kind of bigger thing of, well, I guess the pond was sort of like the story of the garden area, like the great room was for the building.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was the worst, the great room was the worst part of the building. You
Yeah.
know, it had the mold, the leaks,
Sure.
and then it became the best.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And where we put the pond, it was like this pit that would flood, and
Right.
we didn't know what to
Right.
do with it. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
right in the middle of everything, and now it's the anchor point
Yeah, yeah.
of the landscape.
Yeah, you're turning your negatives into positives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that pond can sort of be the pattern for the rest of the landscape.
Sure.
Put in more steps, more stone walls, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Because now nearby that you have the longhouse.
Yep.
And you have a vision of maybe housing a permanent farmer there, or
Yeah, it's that's the last building to really tackle on the, actually we're putting more rubber roofing on the roof
Oh,
actually
okay.
this week
Oh, no
because we're
kidding.
still
Yeah.
dealing with leaks in that
Oh, yeah,
building.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of been like we've just used it as like a shed, but it's
Yeah.
overlooking the garden.
building, yeah.
Cute
Yeah,
little
yeah.
historic building.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we keep going back and forth, maybe farming for or housing for a farmer, or maybe now that these homeschoolers are coming in, like
Yeah.
they're looking for more
More
like
s-
maker space,
Oh, okay.
maybe a
Oh, oh.
kitchen, you
Yeah,
know,
sure,
to
sure.
process the food we get out of the garden, maybe a shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's
okay.
that's the next thing that
Yeah.
we're going to be
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
to tackle in the next couple of years.
I guess like traditionally a longhouse would be like a communal space. Iroquois would longhouse. I believe people just lived in it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
fantastic. And so from there, you're looking at maybe a greenhouse, another greenhouse. You have one already, two actually on the property, one on the lower property.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that's some space that we lease to a local grower, Stephanie Dillon. She has North Shore natives.
Yes.
She grows
yeah,
the
yeah.
natives there. Yeah, and then we
yeah.
have another greenhouse kind of up near the manor, but in sort of in the corner of the garden, there's like a south-facing kind of nook where there's a lot of ledge, and it's right near our well. And that's eventually where I'd like to put a permanent greenhouse.
Okay.
Right next to the garden, and then it's already sort of in a microclimate
Yeah.
because it's protected from all the ledge,
Yeah.
south facing.
Right.
So
And so that would be something that you would have some expertise in, you and Ben possibly, because I think I had talked to Ben, and he had like maybe the sort of template for a greenhouse.
the arch.
The arch part of it.
Yeah. There's a bunch of YouTube videos about
Yeah.
people making I forget what it's called. Yeah, these arches, simple arches that you can make.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of different ways
Right, yeah.
a greenhouse could be
Sure,
made.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
The main thing is just arranging the we got to cut into the ledge a little to really get it
Okay.
nestled
Yeah,
in.
yeah, it's a little work there.
And then
Yeah.
the top part of the greenhouse, I'm not sure what the specifics will be yet, but
Yeah.
there's many different ways it can be done.
Yeah, awesome. And then you guys still have a capital campaign, an active capital campaign going on?
So the main push that we had last year was just to be able to keep the property.
Right, yeah.
And so thankfully I did manage to find someone who made a private loan for us.
Awesome. Amazing.
So we have refinanced. We're good for at least another 10 years. So that was the goal for this year, 2024.
Yeah.
And so we're still kind of just waking up to the fact that we're going to be here for at least, another 10 years.
Yeah,
And
right.
so we're starting to have a bunch of little meetings with the different people involved about figuring out what the solid plan is for the next stage
Yeah.
of the capital campaign.
Yeah.
And that's going to be for some of these things we were just talking about
Sure.
to multiply our ability to educate the community in horticulture, with these added infrastructure with the greenhouse, longhouse going.
Yeah.
And then also to develop, what the curriculum will look like.
Yeah.
Sort of on the academic side.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to sort out, but the homeschool communities is the best part because it's sort of like a pilot program. We
Sure.
already have a whole set of families on the property, and they're very enthusiastic about entering into a sort of partnership
Sure.
to develop the
Right.
horticulture side.
Yeah.
Because they all want their kids to learn how to garden.
Yeah. So it's, there's a,
And the moms want to learn too.
and I think one of your things that I've read is learning by doing. That's sort of a motto, I guess. And that, I mean, for kids, right? So much to learn through growing or basic carpentry skills, or I don't know,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
cleaning up or working together, kind of.
The whole property is a laboratory.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it.
But I mean, the learn by doing. I mean, I think we've all been. I know for me, I just look back at when I was in school, middle school, high school. It was like I really didn't like it. I mean, of course, I like the friends and
the social aspect of it.
But just sitting in a building all day.
Yeah.
And we all remember, when are we ever going to use this?
I'm still wondering.
That was a valid question. And they
yeah.
never gave us a good answer.
Yeah. I mean, there's good and good and not so good. But,
I don't want to get too hard on the school system. I mean, thank God we have schools that we can go to.
Yeah.
But my point is this is just approaching education, from a totally different angle.
I mean, it's from a common sense point of view, learning by doing, repetition, just working with your hands. And there's something about, and of course there's a role for, mathematics and sciences and everything, but something about just getting your hands into the soil, growing and nurturing something, being connected to the earth.
Yeah, it's the experiential aspect of it. It's the answer to that question, when am I ever going to use this? It's like, well, you're learning it as you're using it. So the use, the experience is direct with the learning.
Yeah, and it's like, and once you learn that, you never unlearn.
You know it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And once you taste those nice vegetables, you'll always want to grow food.
Yeah.
But so yeah, awesome. I really a lot of respect for what you guys have done. I remember the documentary about the guy who walked between the two towers in New York City, Twin Towers, and taking that first step. He said the hardest part was taking that first step onto the wire. And you guys, you stepped onto it, and you're doing it. So hats off to you. Really appreciate you coming in and talking about it.
I'm thankful to be here, and I hope more people can find out about it. And you've kind of been involved on and off over the years, and our goal from the beginning is just for it to continue to be a community asset.
It really is. Yes, and so if someone wants to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, the website, thegardenschool.org, info@thegardenschool.org is the contact email that goes to me. Mm-hmm. So it's it's a work in progress.
Sure. Yeah.
But there's opportunities to get involved, certainly.
And are you renting out the great room beyond what you're doing now, or is it like specific things that you want to happen there as opposed to like, you know, weddings and stuff like that?
We've been renting it out to. We're trying to stick with educational groups.
That's sort of
So
in
yeah,
tune
we
with
do.
what you're doing.
Actually,
okay.
we do. This woman Erica that I mentioned, she actually has stepped up into the role of scheduling the day rentals for the space.
Yeah.
I'm going to be getting her email on the website. So if groups are interested in renting the space, that's available too.
Yeah. And the farm stand is closed now for the season, but it will start up
Usually,
May or
end of June.
End of June.
We're our thing with the farm stand is local food. So usually the food doesn't start coming in until the end of June, early July.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers.